Are you narcissistic? How do you know? If you said no, then you're probably living with somebody who is. If you've ever felt disconnected or confused by somebody's actions, I welcome you to tune into today's episode, episode 23, How to Soothe, Heal, and Recover from Narcissism. I'm so excited to have today's guest on board. I'm looking at my screen thinking I've got some technical difficulties. Maybe I do, maybe I don't. We're still going to run with it. I'm so excited to introduce to you today's guest, and we're going to really dive deep into this conversation. I know narcissism, codependence is a huge topic right now, and I'm bringing the expert to you today so that we can discuss this and that you can clarify any questions, any concerns that you might have. So welcome to episode 23 of the Coffee and Confidence Show. My name is Kelly Kerrigan, and I am an assertiveness coach. My business is Empower Me Coaching, and I am helping people pleasers confidently communicate with others. Maybe you're asking, well, what is a people pleaser? Great question. So a people pleaser is somebody who puts everyone else's needs before their own. They are selfless givers to the point that they feel resentment. They're taking things personally, and they are literally sitting in the passenger seat of their own life. They're on the hamster wheel of life, and they are just going through the motions, feeling unsatisfied and unfulfilled. Now, how do I know this? Because that was me years ago. I am a recovered people pleaser, and now I'm helping people pleasers communicate effectively and build those strong relationships, because I truly believe that so many people in our society right now feel devalued and unheard. I mean, it's at schools, at work, at home. And I mean, right now we are so connected more than ever, yet disconnected. So I'm helping people communicate from a place of mutual respect, learn assertiveness skills to foster that human connection again. So that's a little bit about me. Now, all about my guest. Welcome, Lorraine. We've got Lorraine Lapointe. She's a coach, a mentor, a psychotherapist, and she is doing this work, and she's helping people just like you get over those hurdles. So welcome, Lorraine. Please share a little bit more about yourself with everyone.
Well, thank you, Kelly. It's absolutely wonderful to be here, and I thank you for this opportunity. And yes, actually, I am a beliefs coach, so I help people understand and identify what their beliefs are. And most of our beliefs are great. They help us run our lives, but then sometimes we have those beliefs that are limiting or non-beneficial, and I help people find what those are, root them out, and replace them. They're like bad weeds. Replace them with the flowers that make their lives bloom. And I'm also a hypnotherapist, so I use both modalities to help people, and we play in our subconscious mind. I love to act like a detective, and do that deep detective work to find out what the wounds are that were created when we were young, and heal them. And so that in a nutshell is a little bit about me.
Oh, that's amazing. I'm really curious. How did you get into this line of work?
Well, actually, it happened about 12 or 13 years ago now. Both of my parents were diagnosed with terminal illnesses at the same time. And so they ended up in palliative care together, which was not a very joyful time of my life. And I went to see a hypnotherapist who helped me segregate out parts of my life. So when I was at work as a principal, I was at work. And when I was at home, I was actually resting and relaxed. And then when I was the dutiful daughter at the hospital, I could focus on my parents. And then after my parents passed, she helped me reconnect all of the parts of my life so that I could live fully again. And that's really what triggered me. It was like, I want to be able to help people do that too. So I've been doing that for quite some time now, and it's my passion.
Yeah.
And my purpose, so.
Yeah. Well, that's amazing, right? When you can live your purpose and it's aligned with your life and it's the work, like it's aligned with the work you do, that's the most beautiful thing.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for taking a few minutes to share a little bit about yourself with myself and the viewers today. And because this is the Coffee and Confidence show, it is time for What is in Your Cup? Do you want me to share first, or would you like to share first what's in your cup, Lorraine?
No, you go right ahead there, Kelly.
Okay, so I have a little bit of a funny story today. Yesterday, I was out at the store and I was just killing some time before I picked up my daughter at the bus stop. And I came across what was this like mind-blowing concept to me, which I had never heard of. Apparently, I'm behind the times. So on the shelves of the store, I saw what's called a dirty chai. And it is chai tea mixed with espresso. And I'm like, huh. Okay, my Coffee and Confidence crew has to hear about this. Because on the Coffee and Confidence show, we have like coffee drinkers and tea drinkers, and sometimes we're divided, but that's okay. So I was like, okay, I have to put it out there. And apparently I'm behind the times. People are like, oh yeah, I've been ordering this, from Starbucks for years and whatnot. So I was on a mission last night. I was like, okay, I have to go to Starbucks and I have to order this dirty chai. I need to find out for myself what this is all about. And the funny story is, Jay came home and I'm like, hey, have you ever heard of a dirty chai? And he's like, is this a trick question? Like, what are you getting at? Because he had never heard of it either. So then we started giggling about it. So anyway, we started giggling about it and I went to Starbucks and I ordered this dirty chai. So today I went and got one for the show so I could share with you guys what I'm drinking, what's in my cup, because I'm always about trying something new. I do enjoy it. I think it gives me a little bit of a giggle just saying that. So that's what's in my cup this morning. I'm trying something new. And it's been entertaining. And I would love to hear from you guys who are tuning in live or are catching the replay. Have you heard of this? A dirty chai tea and espresso. I would love to know if I'm that much out of the loop or not. So that's what's in my cup this morning, Lorraine. What's in your cup?
Well, I appreciate you sharing that, Kelly, because I'd never heard of a dirty chai, and I can't wait to run that one past my husband either, because he will go in totally the wrong direction. But I only have coffee in my cup, but after the broadcast, I think I might just add some chai and try that out myself. So although my coffee, what's in my cup at the moment, I'm looking forward to adding something new to my cup later today.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's amazing. Yeah. So I want to remind everybody that this is a live show. If you're tuning in live, say hello, let us know you're here, join in the conversation, ask questions. The more you get involved, the more benefit and the more value you will get from today's show. Same thing if you're catching the replay, please ask questions. Both Lorraine and I will stay connected and get you the information that you so desire. So today we are talking all about, just before that, I see a comment coming in. Just 1 second there, Lorraine. I just want to acknowledge Debbie. Debbie Robinson says, sounds good, Kelly. Perfect. So glad to have you here today, Debbie. I'm just going to hide that. So yes, back to that. So we're talking about the narcissism and how to soothe, heal, and recover from that. So if we look at, like, why is this a hot topic right now?
Well, it's interesting because we are all on the spectrum. Everybody shares it. It's a spectrum. So we are all there somewhere. Quite often when we are at one end or the other end of the spectrum in terms of these behavior traits, it causes issues and discomfort in our lives. And so it's a hot topic at the moment because, and we probably do not have a lot of people who are at the high end of the narcissism scale, because what I'm going to share today is what makes somebody behave in narcissistic ways versus codependent ways. And I'm trying to be very conscious of not labeling people. Although it is a spectrum and we like to talk about the narcissist or the codependent, the people have character traits, they aren't the traits. And so I just want to make people aware that, to label somebody is not okay. They are just behaviors. And it is a hot topic because so many people are coping with narcissistic types of behaviors in their partners or their family members.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I would love for you to take just a minute or two and explain the difference between like codependence and narcissism, or some of the traits. So somebody, let's just start with codependence. Somebody who is showing codependence, what are some of the traits?
Well, I'm going to talk about the root.
Okay.
The root of codependence is actually guilt, whereas the root of narcissistic behavior is shame. And it all starts as a very young child or a baby. When we are first born, obviously egocentric, everything is about us. We have no concept or no way of understanding the adult world. And so when we're laying in our crib and we need our diaper changed, or we're hungry or something, we have a need of some sort. And our caregivers aren't responding to our needs. We could go in two different directions. We can either, as a baby, think, I'm bad, there's something wrong with me, which is shame-based, or we can think, I've done something wrong, I need to fix it, which is guilt-based. So to answer your question, to have codependent tendencies is to feel guilty and that we feel that we need to fix something. And so we become the people pleasers. I too am a recovering people pleaser. And that tends to be my go-to response in terms of when something happens and I feel uncomfortable. It tends to be a guilt response. However, I'm also a hybrid. Sometimes I can have very much the narcissistic traits if shame is triggered. And I really feel that people do slide back and forth on that scale, but I hope that helps answer the question a little for people to understand how these behaviors develop.
Yeah, I like that you said like the root of codependence. I just made some notes here. The root of codependence is guilt, and then the root of like narcissistic is shame.
Yeah, so what happens in a relationship quite typically is somebody who meets, let's say two people meet, and one tends to be a little more narcissistic and the other tends to be a little more codependent. And at the beginning, it's a match made in heaven. Because the codependent person wants to love the other person well. They want to love them better, make them feel good about themselves. And for the person who is a narcissistic personality, that feels great at the beginning because they, usually you're pumped up, you're telling them how wonderful they are, that kind of thing. And that helps soothe the shame. But what happens in a relationship is the heaven turns into hell because the message that the person with codependent characteristics is, the message becomes, I want to love you well, which suggests to the other person that there's something wrong with them. And that's their core wound. They will do anything to avoid that feeling of shame. I mean, anything. And that's when we get people who are belittling, gaslighting, all of those kinds of narcissistic types of behaviors that cause a great deal of pain in a relationship. It's also why we probably aren't talking to anyone on this show who is at the narcissistic end of the scale, because if they were, they would have to admit that they wanted to soothe, heal, and recover, which would mean that they needed to admit that there was something wrong with them. And that's not going to happen. That's their key avoidance. So we're probably only talking to people on the show who are at the other end of the scale and share the codependency characteristics. And codependency characteristics include putting others first, making them more important than ourselves, giving until we give to depletion. That's typical of that type of behavior.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So you mentioned like in relationships, how, it starts off as a match made in heaven. Now, what about in the workplace? Is there conflict, that can happen in the workplace with different personalities, perhaps between like the codependents and the narcissistic traits?
Oh, absolutely. We play out the same thing over and over and over again throughout our lives. So whatever our relationship was that did not get resolved as a child in terms of relating to parents or caregivers or people that are important in our lives, we recreate that for ourselves throughout our lives. It's like a cycle. So absolutely it happens in the workplace. Quite often, the people that are drawn to positions of authority tend to be narcissistic in their behavior, because somebody with narcissism needs to be bigger than life. They need to grandstand. They need to make themselves feel okay because the wound of the shame is so painful that they'll find any way possible to not feel it by making themselves larger than life. And so that's a great leader. Leaders, I mean, narcissism is not all negative. Many of the greatest leaders that we've ever experienced are also narcissistic in behavior. And you need to have an element of narcissism to be a great leader, because you need to be able to stand up and say, I know what I'm doing, I can do this well, and to have others follow you.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I'm just thinking about the audience that I serve, and my people pleasers. I'm thinking of them, right? I'm thinking of them in the workplace, and they find it extremely hard to be led by somebody with those characteristics.
If the characteristics are such that the leader is not, I was a principal for years, so I understand servant leadership. And so my own background in terms of leadership and in the workplace is I was most effective when I went to my staff members and asked them for their input, when I asked them for their thoughts and their feelings. And somebody who is at the codependent, the people-pleasing end of the spectrum, that will please them like they want to be asked, but it will also put pressure on them because they want to please. And if they don't know what the leader wants, then it's hard to please. So it's a fine balance. A really strong leader finds that balance between giving direction and vision and asking for input and allowing others to create their vision within the larger organization.
That's really interesting. You mentioned servant leadership. I would love for you to expand on that just briefly. What is, I feel that I know what servant leadership is. I would love for you to share what that is with our viewers.
Certainly. So servant leadership, many times when somebody is in a position of authority, it's viewed as they become the boss, they tell everybody what to do. In actuality, leadership should be, in my opinion, and servant leadership is leading from the back of the pack. So this is the way I describe it so that I hope viewers understand. You can lead, you can set a direction. Like, let's say you're a military, you're in front of a military group and you're all marching in one direction. You set the goal of where you're going to, and that's the vision, the goal. And then a servant leader will fall to the back of the pack and allow their own strong members of their team to lead on while they support those who are struggling. And so servant leadership is there to provide the resources, the encouragement, and any support that is needed by those in our group, in our team, who are struggling the most.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah. It's like leaders growing other leaders is what comes to my mind when you talk about that. Yeah, that's beautiful.
You're serving. You are a leader, and so you are responsible for the health and well-being of your group that you're leading. But instead of being sage on the stage and out front of all the time, you drop to the back and you support those that need it.
Mm-hmm. That's great. I also think like in parenting, right? Parenting, I really feel, is a servant leadership, is just helping them and growing them, as opposed to do what I say, do it because I said so.
Very much so. And that's a fabulous segue in terms of the narcissistic behaviors versus the codependent behaviors, because as a parent, we usually, as children, experience both ends, either through our own parents or through teachers or people who have authority in the community, that type of thing. But in order to be a truly effective parent, a child has to be given opportunities to make decisions and make mistakes. And it's okay to make mistakes. Mm-hmm. Those children who, fear making a mistake, it's because they've been ridiculed for something that they've done that hasn't worked out, rather than supported. When, if a kid can't make a mistake, then when can you? I mean, that's what their purpose is. That's what their growth is all about. So yes, wonderful. Thank you for making that connection.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're welcome. And, the topic of our show today is how to heal, soothe, and recover. How to heal, soothe, and recover, which is really important. So when you're delivering your message of how to heal, soothe, and recover, who specifically are you speaking to?
Always the one that is codependent.
Okay.
As I said, the people who are most embedded in narcissism they are not capable of saying, I need to soothe, heal, and recover, because that would have to be admitting shame. Now, I'm not saying that narcissists can't recover. Like if you have narcissistic tendencies, that you can't, you can certainly choose to. It's all that's required is insight and willingness to face and to feel the shame, the wounds, and to heal the wounds. So at either end of the spectrum, healing and soothing and recovery can take place. What typically happens, though, is that when you are a people pleaser or a codependent, you have those kinds of tendencies because it's guilt. It's about something I've done that needs to be fixed. It's not so much about me. And so it is actually, I won't say easier, but it appeals to the soothing, healing, and recovery appeals to those who feel that they've done something wrong rather than they are wrong.
Mm-hmm. I have something that I want to highlight is that I know I experienced a friendship, quite a few years ago, where it was kind of like the relationship that you described. Like it was amazing. Like we were like best friends. We did everything together. And then it's like one day the switch turned and it's like, I was like a ghost. I was like, well, like, the behaviors were inconsistent. It's like, okay, I know when I'm really excited to see my friend, I'm like, hey, but then there was often times that was very confusing for me that, that I would get pushed out. So I think it's really important for people who can identify with, being codependent people pleasers is to understand why this could happen. So I know that years back, it was a really a tough process for me to, like I said, heal, soothe, and recover, because it's like, it just felt like it just came out of left field. It's like, what is going on? What just happened?
Well, when you are a people pleaser, you are highly relational. You are supported, you get your juice, you get your feel goods from the relationship. When you are at the other end of the spectrum, you don't. And so it's not that the people at the other end of the spectrum don't care. They do, but once they are satisfied in the relationship and they think everything is going along well, then they can turn back to what it is that they do best, which is focusing on themselves. And that can feel like disconnection. Mm-hmm. And so what happens when you feel disconnected is you start to chase and you start to pursue. when you pursue somebody who is at the other end of the spectrum is narcissistic, you are actually communicating there's something wrong with them because you're needy, and they don't want to recognize neediness in themselves. And so that's where the switch happens. So you go from the heaven, and it switches, and it becomes hell. Mm-hmm. And the relationship with friends can do the same thing as a relationship with a lover or a partner. Mm-hmm. So the soothing for somebody who is a people pleaser or has codependency tendencies is self-care. Not looking outside themselves for that soothing, for that care, but looking after themselves. Because what is typical is they give and they give and they give and they give to depletion. And then they get the assumption nobody cares about me. I've not done, I need to do more. I need to fix this so that I'm cared for. And that's what sets up the negative spiral. So in terms of healing, we can dig deep into the psyche and heal the specific wounds. And that's some of what I do with clients, especially if their beliefs are particularly troublesome. But the soothing is always about self-care, and the recovery is about self-care as well. When you are dealing with somebody who is at the high end of the narcissistic scale, and things are turning sideways in terms of a partner, you need very clear boundaries. You need to be really clear what it is that you need from your partner, and then you need to be very clear with them, and you need to set boundaries. Because somebody who is feeling shame and is used to looking after themselves may walk all over you and not even realize they've hurt your feelings. Mm-hmm. The difficulty for relationships is when the person with the narcissistic tendencies no longer cares that they've hurt your feelings. And so that becomes a situation where you really want to check if you can talk to them and say, my feelings were hurt when this happened, and never you hurt my feelings. Mm-hmm. Say that to somebody who is suffering a wound of shame, is to shame them. And if you shame them, they will block you. So the wording is very important, the communication. And I know that that's your particular expertise. Mm-hmm. The forms of communication are really important in the words that you use when you are navigating one of those relationships.
Yeah, really interesting. So it's really about self-care.
It is.
It's really about self-care, and the healing, you said, it can go really deep. So when you're looking at the healing part, what would you recommend?
So the healing part, it comes down to beliefs. As I said, when we're babies, we have experiences, and from those experiences, we create beliefs. And I'm not talking about the beliefs like I believe in God or I believe that this is a table, but the beliefs that have what I call juice or emotion. Things like I'm not enough, I'm unworthy, I'm unlovable, I don't matter, mm-hmm. I shouldn't exist. If any of these, if you feel like, oh, that one really resonated, it means that you have created a belief through an experience when you were young, most usually before we develop language, because a lot of these beliefs are accepted before we even have words or we even have language. And it's at that level, it's the experience level where the healing takes place. Okay. So we can, with our conscious minds, we can do all the chatting we like about it. But it's until we get into the feeling experience level that the healing truly takes place. That's how you rip the weed out by the root, mm-hmm. so that you can replace it. And once you've replaced that belief with a belief that is better serving, then your perspective, your outlook on life, the possibilities and the opportunities that you see completely change for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And I would definitely agree with you that self-care is really, really important. And I mean, self-care looks different to everybody. I mean, some of the big ones are, nutrition, exercise, what you feed your mind with, what you read, what you watch. Do you have any other ideas for self-care for people?
Yeah, simple things like allowing yourself to breathe. One of the things that we don't tend to do is we don't give ourselves time to breathe and to settle and to relax. We don't. We need water, lots of water, and guilty is charged. Sometimes, it's self-care does not have to be difficult. It doesn't have to take a lot of time. It takes recognition of what our needs are and listening to our inner selves and being willing to give ourselves what it is that we need at that time. Mm-hmm. So if it's to go for a walk, or if it's to be in nature, or if it's to eat something that's healthy, if it's to disconnect from technology for, a few minutes, if it's to just focus inward. I mean, meditation is wonderful. Even 5 or 10 minutes a day can completely change your whole outlook in terms of your life. So all of those kinds of things contribute to self-care.
Mm-hmm. I noticed on the Coffee and Confidence show, self-care and daily success habits is coming up a lot. So if you're watching, if you're a consistent watcher, take note. Take note. It's really important. I mean, self-care and even daily success habits is a real game changer.
Yeah, there's a reason why they say put your own oxygen mask on first in an airplane. Mm-hmm. If we don't look after ourselves, then we give from depletion, which means we end up with too needy people instead of really being the people helpers that we truly want to be. And so there is good reason for self-care and looking after yourself before you give to others.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing. Well, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to share your knowledge and share your insight with the viewers today. I would love, for people to connect with you. So how can people get in touch with you, Lorraine?
Probably the easiest way is through my website. And it's you could either go through headheartsynergy.com, which is my company, or my own name, lorrainelapointe.ca. So either way, they'll connect to my website, and I have a free resource which can be helpful for viewers called Courage, Risks, and Rewards. And they're very welcome to download that resource if they choose to, or they can also from my website connect with me for a free consultation if they would like some more information.
Awesome. Well, I welcome you to leave your website in the link.
Thank you.
In the comments once we are done. So yes, anybody watching or catching the replay, please reach out to Lorraine. She's on Facebook. You can send her a friend request. And you have like a page too, right? The Head Heart Synergy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So lots of different ways to communicate.
Yeah. So share them all. Once we're done, copy the links in the comments so that it's easy access for everybody. All they have to do is just click it. Click the link.
All right. I will do.
Yeah. So once again, thank you so much. This is a weekly show, the Coffee and Confidence Show. Next week, we have episode 24, Thursday morning. Tune in live right here on Facebook. I also have a private Facebook group called the Coffee and Confidence Group. If you feel inclined and want to join a great community where we are growing in confidence and having a little fun with a flair of coffee and tea, obviously, and a little dirty chai. I'll leave the link for the group in the comments as well when we're done. So thank you so much. Again, Lorraine, a blessing to have you. And we'll see you next week on the Coffee and Confidence Show. Bye for now.
Thank you. Bye-bye.